right, we're rolling with that, and we're going to go live with this. Hi everyone, I'm Peter.
I'm Crow.
And when we get together we have some interesting conversations, so we're doing it in front of a camera.
Yeah. In the shade of a beautiful tree in my backyard. It is nice back here.
Lovely, lovely, absolutely.
Oh, you came prepared this week.
I do indeed, yes. I've got several questions that I can ask you.
Okay, I did do some notes just in case we end up running into a lull.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. So my first thing I got here is I don't know. It says economy. Let's talk about the economy a little bit. Why is it so screwed up, and how could it be much better?
The economy's screwed up because we're working on a system that is just an old system that was basically developed by the Dutch, I believe, and we've been in like the 1500 or some damn thing like that, and we've been working off of this system, and it's just being patched together, and and been limping along for actually the last 100 years. It's okay. When the system was first set up a long time ago, it was set up for shipping. Shipping back across the ocean, well, from Africa on up to Europe, and it was based on the exchange of goods, not so much on services. And therein lies the problem in today, here in the 21st century. Because when the system was first put together, took it forward more. Yeah, there we go. And when the system was first put together, it was put together with the idea that you would exchange something of value, usually, gold, silk, whatever, right? You would exchange that, and you would get value for value, equal goods for equal goods. Not a big deal. And so that meant that the economy would run smoothly because it was reliant on how much your ship could bring into port. Okay? Now, you did have the odd time, one of the things that did kind of throw a wrench into it, let's say, was literature, when the printing press came into place. Okay? So that kind of threw the good wrench into that, because you could write a book once and sell it 1,000 times.
Right, so that was the beginning of intellectual property rights.
Exactly. But the book, but a book wasn't enough to disturb that system, because you needed paper and a printing press. So there were things involved.
Still heavily resource intensive.
Exactly, I love that word. You're right. Yes, heavily resource intensive. And then when we come up to the 20th century, this is where things started to get wacky, near the end of the 19th century into the beginning of the 20th century, because look what was going on at the end of the 18th century. You had Nikola Tesla, you had Einstein, or not Einstein, but the other guy, Edison.
Yeah.
And so
electric motors were invented so much earlier because I hear about this like the 1860s, 1850s, something like that. They started having electric motors, and then some of the stuff in chemistry, science, physics, all those real big scientific innovations started somewhat earlier than I would have guessed, certainly. And so that
I agree with you.
They were laying the groundwork in the mid 19th century, the mid 1800s, for the 20th and even the 21st century. Was being established then.
It surprised me as well when I did my research, and to find out that the electric motor was invented sometime in the 1860s. I never would have guessed that. Never.
Because the design is basically unchanged.
I know. I mean, it's like locomotives. I mean, they designed the locomotives back in the 1900s, and that design has not changed to this. Well, it has changed.
It
somewhat.
changed some, yeah. For 100 years, the steam locomotive has looked about the same.
No, even the diesel.
The diesel locomotive.
The diesel locomotive did not change right up until about maybe 10 years ago. Seriously, it was the exact same thing that was built in 1925.
That's right. Yeah, they had them in the, now 100 years.
And
diesel
now,
locomotives.
yeah, now they're changed, but not drastically. Basically, all we did is just take out the engine and we put in modules now. So now you have 3 modular sets of generator packs, all being pushed by a V6 engine, and you've got 3 of them now. And the purpose of that is so that when they're coming from BC through the Rockies, all 3 of those engines are fired up. But then when they hit Alberta and the prairies, they're down to 1 engine. Talk about a savings in fuel. Holy shit. And that 1 engine will run them all the way to Manitoba, probably right to the border of Ontario. No problem, because it's flat as a fucking pancake here. And you just go.
So the next big thing that a train guy was talking is due to their size, I understand, like we can do a hybrid car, electric car, even things like a highway tractor, but trains, that's going to take a little bit more engineering to have like those batteries, because they have a diesel motor, they have electric, diesel generator and electric motors to run it. Okay, that's great, but
basically it's a 12 cylinder diesel engine that runs a very big generator.
Yeah.
And there's a battery pack, not as big a battery pack as you think.
Okay.
And that is just basically a store, but the generator's actually doing all the work. Yeah. So I mean, the batteries are just absorbing the bleed off and supplementing for like any hard spots.
Okay, yeah.
But,
so basically a diesel locomotive is a massive diesel generator with wheels under it and a hitch on the back.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's exactly what
Yes.
it is. So even then, you are still resource dependent on that stuff. But cracks started to appear because you could buy a electric motor, and it could do a ton of work for you for years and years and years. And so there wasn't the exchange of resources, so that started to slow down, and then labor started to become important. But of course, the companies didn't want to deal with that. I mean, they just wanted to pay everybody pennies on the dollar, is what they wanted to do. But that's a whole separate fucking issue.
Yeah.
So, anyways. Then we get into the late 19th century. This is where like people really started flexing intellectual property to make money. This was, and the printing press was going full bore. Newspapers were going. It became so easy to print after that, and then we're getting into photographs too. So there's another thing. You buy a camera once, but that's making you money over and over and over and over again. And it was the same thing with the books. You could write a book, and now instead of having like maybe a few thousand people writing books, now you've got 10,000 people writing books and selling books and making money and sitting at home because because they wrote the book once. I mean, how much money do you think Mark Twain made off of his books? And he spent a great deal of his time just chilling. He spent money and he bought things, but he didn't have to take anything out of the environment to make that money anymore.
Yeah, so labor was, you get far more returns for a given amount of labor. Residual income, royalties, etc. became far more widespread.
Exactly. And that is actually what caused the crash. They can tell you that all this other stuff caused the crash, but the root cause was intellectual property, is what it came down to, because they didn't know how to adjust the market for this loss of resource-intensive work that was gone. And so then that's when they started playing with the idea of the fiat system, because they thought that with a fiat system they would have more control, because then they could print money and that should cover the intellectual property stuff. Well, we're at this end of it now, and we know that that's bullshit. It's not working at all. And now the situation is 1,000 times worse than what it was at the turn of the 20th century, because now we have computers.
We've got the internet.
I mean, I can write a app for a Android phone, and it might take me 3 months to write this app, to do a good job, and to test it and do everything properly. 3 months of work, and then I turn around and I release that app, and I will make money off of that app for the next 5 years, like millions of dollars off of that app, no problem. I mean, because all I need to do is just sell it to like maybe 50,000 people, and I've made $1 billion. I mean, at like $3 a $3 or $2 a month membership, that's $100,000 a month at 50,000 people. Times that across 12 months, there's your $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Actually, it'd be 1.2 million.
Yeah, the economy is, with all of these considerations, the economy is set to explode, and we've seen even the last 5, 10, even 20 years, all the things that are changing. So I'm going to ask you, what's the future? And I do want to ask, we went off the gold standard. Now, is the gold standard a thing we should have, or should we go in a completely new direction? So 2 questions for you right now, Crow. What's the future of the economy, and does it involve the gold standard?
It's got to involve the gold standard. There is no choice in that. But the gold has to be complemented by something else.
Okay.
And the only thing that I see that it can be complemented with is cryptocurrency. Because right now, the problem with our fiat system is that you can't really, you can track the money, but you can't track what that money has done. And so that opens up the door to so many nefarious things. And once the door is open on nefarious things, we all lose. And because the money ends up in places where you don't want it to end up. I mean, take a guy like Escobar, the drug dealer. Colombia, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I mean, that guy made so much goddamn money that he was like, he couldn't even give it away. And he fucking tried. Like, he really, really tried to give a lot of his money away. Like, go talk to the people in the hometown where he was from. And he was a fucking hero. They considered him Jesus Christ. Because he took care of everybody. I mean, he built new houses, he built schools, he did everything. Like, to those people, he was a hero, but he was still a fucking monster. Don't get me wrong. He was not a good person, not by any stretch of the imagination. He just wanted people to like him. And so he had so much money, he couldn't give it away, so he started burying it. And then this shit would rot in the ground. So now you've got money that's rotting in the ground, but it's still on the books as being in currency.
Yeah.
So now that's a problem. So now you've got this money that's rotted in the ground, but it's still in currency, but there's still not enough money circulating in the general populace to keep the economy going. So you got to print more. But now you've got more money on the books than you do in reality. And so now you've got to adjust interest rates.
So there's got to be a way to track the money to make the economy work in real time with the massive abilities that we have to do what we're doing.
So this is why gold has to be complemented with a cryptocurrency of some sort, and or some kind of digital currency that is secure.
Yeah.
And crypto seems to be the best one so far. We're not heading down that rabbit hole today, but I can tell you things about cryptocurrency that would just blow your mind. But but it has to complement, because here's the thing. With all the people making YouTube videos, putting content on Facebook and Twitter, Twitter, and YouTube, they're making a killing, and they're not giving that back to the people.
Yeah, oh, I'm going to jump in for a second, and the idea started in my mind as a joke, kind of, because you get these the computer scammer. He says, we've detected we're from IT. We've detected an issue in your system. You need to call. You need to talk to us immediately. So I thought of, and I've kind of played with these guys. I didn't touch a computer. I went along with him, and I asked him, I need your username and password so I can enter my information into your system. And he got mad and hung up. But what I was thinking, actually, what started this idea I asked Crow about, is I was going to ask one of these guys, okay, how much are you going to pay me for having my personal information, in this case, my phone number?
Yes. And therein lies the problem, is that for every piece of information that a company is using to make money, give us a goddamn kickback.
Yeah.
I mean, if they gave us a kickback for all the pieces of information that they have in their possession, even if it was 1%,
That'd be huge.
it would be fucking huge. Are you kidding? It might not like replace your income, but my God, it sure as hell would help.
Yep.
I mean, even if that 1% translated to $500 a month, I wouldn't give a fuck. It's an extra $500 a month in my pocket.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, that's that's basically a car payment when you really think about it. And this bullshit that the government's like, oh, we tax we have income tax because because people won't spend their money. Yeah. Bullshit.
No kidding.
Bullshit. Trust me. If I got an extra $1,000 a month from these internet companies, I ain't gonna have any trouble spending it. No fucking problem. I love my energy drinks. I like smoking my dope. I like my cigarettes. I like going for drives. I like having nice stuff. That money will be spent.
Yeah, most people are going to spend money.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, I might put, some will be put away for my retirement. But when I put it away for my retirement, guess what? It's going into a fucking RRSP. And the bank is now making interest off of that. They're giving me a little bit of a kickback, like 6%, I think. But meanwhile, they're making 10%.
Yeah, no kidding.
So it's like, stop taxing the shit out of us, and the economy will be just fine.
And then a corollary to that, people have said for, I don't know how long, but for a long time that I know, in schools, as early as mid-grade school, I suppose kids should be taught not only macroeconomics, but how to budget their money.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, too.
A crime that they're not, maybe.
That's the other thing, too. If the government wasn't taxing the shit out of us for every little goddamn thing, I mean, a lot of us, we would not opt to send our kids to a public school. I mean, I know I would have opted to send my kids to a private school that I would go and I would research and decide whether or not they are worth sending my kids to. Actually, that's going to be the future.
Yeah.
That is the future. It's like, instead of having like one big Ivy League school, what we're going to have in the future is hundreds of smaller schools.
They'll sort of be specialized.
They'll be specialized, but these schools will be wholly like
They'll be more independent, decentralized.
It'll be a decentralized,
more flexible,
very flexible. But these schools will be like maybe like a teacher will get a license to run their own school.
Sure.
And the license, depending on what they pay for their license, depends on how many students they're going to be allowed to have. So let's say it's one teacher decides that they can make a good living off of 10 students. Okay? So that's 10 students. Let's say they're charging like maybe $200 a week per student, and you've got 10 students, so $200 a week times 10, that's $2,000, and times that by the 4 weeks of a month. That teacher's making a pretty good living, but that also covers their expense because they got to pay for computer programs, computers, blah, 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 overhead, right? But now that teacher, the only way that teacher is going to get students is through their reputation. And so they are going to have a list of parents that are going to want to teach. And that creates competition. So that means like the next person that wants to have their own private little school and have half a dozen students, now they're in competition with the one that's like maybe over on the next block. And this is all happening in people's houses, by the way. And so, so if you want the students, you've got to be just as good as that other teacher or better. Competition. And to me, when with competition like that, the only ones winning are the students.
Right. So the future is decentralized cottage industry, like it was 500 years ago, but in the internet age, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had something I'm going to jump in with right now. I mentioned to you some of the characters in the book I'm writing. They're quantum androids or whatever, and the main characters of the story deploy about 2 billion of them to basically what they do is they decentralize the world government down to the family level.
When I read your story, it's like you were looking into the future. You see it, but I mean that's actually atypical of people that write, songs, books. That's actually atypical for people that are sincere in their writing, because you get so focused and in the zone, you're actually tapping into the morphogenic field, and the morphogenic field can calculate the future, because the morphogenic field is just a memory field, and so when you tap into it, your intellect is calculating the trends, and you see where that trend is going. Shit, I watched a South Park episode the other night. Naughty Ninjas, I think it was season 2015 season, and it's like defund the police, and
in 2015,
and I'm just like looking at the screen, I'm just like, how the fuck did they know? It blew my. There were like more things that are parallel to what's going on today. And they wrote those episodes in 2015. It blew my fucking mind.
All right, so we're going to segue to the materialism. When I asked you about the economy, we're already getting into spiritual realms. And when I get back from getting my water bottle, I will. We can get right into that. So, just going to check here. Oh yeah, that's great. My recording. Okay. All right. So spiritualism and go.
Spiritualism is, I don't know, it's an overused term.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll clarify what I mean a little bit. Throughout history, we've moved kind of more from materialistic to understanding, perceiving things that are maybe more abstract, let's say. So I guess what's going to be kind of the future as far as how people, even as far as religion might be, what's going to change in religion and the theist versus atheist discussion, et cetera, going forward?
Well, basically in the future, most if not all the religions that we know today are pretty much gone. They're going to be gone, because I mean already the majority of the people, especially here in the West, just have no use for religion, traditional religion, what we know, what we understand as religion today. It's like nobody has any use for it, because for the most part it doesn't make any sense to people, and the people that it does make sense to, like, you gotta, you have a conversation with them and you can tell that they're not using their brain very much. So it's just like, okay, you're always going to have those people.
Yeah, so religion's going to change, and just something I just thought of a second ago, it's been argued that by atheists mostly that science will destroy religion. Well, maybe not. I think it will transform it.
Yeah, science is already transforming religion.
Because we know so much about what causes so many things that even a couple hundred years ago, the average churchgoer would have understood the world very differently than we do now.
Very, very different. Okay. Okay, I'll take a piece from a conversation earlier today. When Einstein was like studying gravity, that study in gravity solidified his belief in God. It really did, because when he studied gravity, he seen things going on in the gravitational fields that convinced him that God existed, and so he just he ended up having a belief. I mean, one of his quotes is, God does not play dice with the universe.
And just to clarify, when we're talking about God, we're not the Old Testament Yahweh, old man in the sky.
Yeah.
No, that's I'm a theist, and I don't even believe in that thing.
Yeah, well, the thing is that the Old Testament God is just that.
Yeah.
It's Old Testament. I mean, you got to think where our ancestors were socially and psychologically and mentally at that time. Where, I mean, they were, they didn't understand where lightning came from. They didn't understand where rain came from. They didn't understand earthquakes. They didn't understand They didn't understand shit.
Yeah, for them, God was a device for interpreting what was going on, and it's
Interpreting nature.
God gets an upgrade, so it's
Yeah.
There's a guy who actually wrote a book, The Evolution of God. I never read it. I don't know how accurate he was about what God actually is, but God evolves as our understanding of the world, universe evolves, and so I'm going to say I don't think atheists can ever prove there isn't a God. I don't know if anything that could be called God would ever be proven in a laboratory, anything like that. You have to experience it subjectively, sort of.
It is subjective, because I mean, your experience, your spiritual experience is just that, your spiritual experience. The only thing, I mean, I caution people, and this is kind of why the church ended up being developed to begin with, is because people's understanding was not there.
Right.
And so, considering the environment that we live in, people's ego usually took the front seat.
Yeah, I understand why the church was developed. I just, it needs an update also, along with God. So,
But I mean,
and it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, and so most people, like, our ancestors were mainly ego-driven. You got to understand that right from the get-go. So whatever religion that they had to describe God was hugely influenced by that ego. And there was no choice, because ego is necessary for survival.
Yeah, man creates God in his image.
Yeah,
That doesn't mean God doesn't exist, but our perception of it is heavily influenced by physical considerations.
Yeah, and why wouldn't it? Because we got no choice. I mean, when you look at the old languages, a lot of it, like a lot of the metaphors, are all go back to nature, especially in the First Nations language. Everything goes back to nature. What choice? And when you look at languages around the world and culture, it's all influenced by the environment and the nature around them, because there is no choice. It's like you might like this one. Okay, I'm talking with a buddy, and I got myself a little bit excited, and I reverted to Maritimer. And I was like, "Holy shit, bud, we can't be doing that." It's like, I said, "We lose our oars in the river. It's like, we're fucked for sure." And he's looking at me, and he's like, "What the fuck was that?" And I was like, "If we don't do this right, we're going to end up in a mess." But basically, that's the saying in the Maritimes. You lose your oars in the river, you're fucked by.
Yep.
You ain't
Yep.
get, you know, it's fucking, you're heading in one direction, they're heading in another, and you ain't getting them back unless you're jumping out of the boat. So, you know, he didn't understand what the fuck I just said. And, you know, and I had to translate it for him, but it happens once in a while. And so, you know, but I mean, that's what you get. But if I'm in the Maritimes and I say that to somebody, they know exactly what I'm saying. They know that, you know, oh, we better buckle up and do a good job. They know this. But out here in the West, but he didn't have a clue. Hell, Peter hardly even knew what I just said.
Let's see. So we kind of covered tech. Okay, so let me ask you a little bit about technology. We talked about some of it, but one of the next big up and coming things that we're going to see, or the next big thing that's really going to change our lives. What do you see there?
The first technology that we're going to see, probably very soon, is wireless electricity.
Wireless electrical transmission.
Yes,
Tesla grade stuff.
Not quite Tesla.
Nikola Tesla grade stuff, not yet.
Well, it's not going to be what Tesla did, because what Tesla was going to do is Tesla was going to flood the atmosphere.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, okay, so every time I touch something, I'm going to get shocked, right?
That would have been a problem. And we certainly wouldn't have been able to have radio communication.
No.
So what's going to end up happening is that these power is going to be brought to your house by wire still. That isn't going to change anytime too soon. But what's going to happen is that you'll be able to put a unit inside your house and all your devices, and you'll be able to like cut the cord on your device and put a special module on it, and you'll have wireless electricity for everything inside your house and probably a certain distance outside your house.
Okay, so like Wi-Fi, except it transmits power instead of just a radio signal.
Yes.
And we kind of have, you know, with the new cell phones, you can lay them on a surface and they'll charge, inductive charging. This is one step beyond that. Like
yes.
I could set my phone on this glass table and say the unit were a few feet away, 20 feet away, however its range is, it would still give it power.
Exactly. So basically what'll end up happening is that any building that you walk into in a modern city, your phone will automatically start charging. So basically all your electronic devices will automatically start charging as soon as you come into range of this device. And it's just going to just move from one device from one to the other, depending on where you go. Now, this technology actually already exists. It can be used to charge cars. It's a type of carbon type paint that you don't even have to plug the vehicle in. You just have to get it close to the unit. And the thing is that you don't even need a unit per vehicle. You only need, like, you have a parking lot, a line of cars, and the unit's here at the end. And you park the first car in the morning, the unit will start parking that car. But then you bring in the next car comes in, and it'll start charging. But let's say this unit has a range of 10 feet, okay? So, you know, and so what happens once you get to your third car? Now you're starting to go outside that 10 feet, but the car is painted with a special type of carbon paint. So now, when this first car is charged, it will spill its overcharged to the car next to it, and then to the car next to it, and then to the car all the way down the line. As long as the cars are within 3 feet of each other, it will just keep passing that charge.
They can relay the charge from this unit
all the way
down the line, as long as all the cars have this feature.
Yes.
Nice.
And that technology's been out. Well, it was invented like 20 some years ago. You think, you know, do we know about it? Does the average person know about it? Fuck no. Do they want to put it into the public? Nope. Not a chance in hell. And that is just one piece of technology. And the other piece of technology that's coming out, and actually I think it's already here, is carbon glass batteries.
Okay, I've heard about those.
Yeah, I think BMW is already using them in their electrical car, because I was reading an article about the new BMW electric car.
Is that what I saw? A YouTube video? Carbon glass?
Carbon glass.
Battery, something like that? Yeah.
And this car, you can get like 700 kilometers per charge, and this is the part that blew me away. Just boom. Less than 20 minutes to full charge.
Yeah.
And I was like, immediately, that is not a lithium battery or a nickel cadmium battery. That is not a chance in hell, because if you try to charge a lithium battery that fast, it's going to blow the fuck up. And yeah, it's just going to do it because it's too much heat, too fast. And so, I'm pretty sure they're already using the glass pack batteries. Glass carbon batteries.
Have them,
and the beauty of this technology, the refit for a battery factory is minimal.
I know, it's incredible. Just in the last, what was it? When did the company Tesla Motors start making their Model S? Like 5-8 years ago? It wasn't even 10 years ago.
It wasn't 10. I think it'd be
quite.
Better.
Let's say 5 years. Just in the last 5 years, it's amazing. The transition time for creating a new technology to putting it to market is it's just become geometrically smaller. And soon, I think, we'll get to the point where we can refit almost anything. Like my 1978 1486 tractor with some kind of nanotech that's coming up, we could probably rebuild that thing in a couple of hours for a few $1,000s instead of sending it to a shop and having components taken out and remachined, or it could be converted to like an electric or who knows what.
I think, once these glass carbon batteries come online, then you would be able to use them for your tractor. But understanding that farm equipment, you have to understand farming, and it will have no choice but to be supplemented with a small generator.
You have to have a generator because if
I
you understand farming, you know how much power it takes to pull farm equipment. You have your 400 horsepower tractor, and it goes 5 miles an hour and pulls a 50-foot chisel or whatever. So you can imagine batteries would last like 10 minutes. They may go like one round around the field, and that's it. So you'd have to have your onboard generator.
Well, the thing is that with glass pack batteries, you might not need that big of a generator.
No.
And the thing is that you could pile them right up. So basically, if you remove the engine of a tractor and you just replaced all of that with batteries, that's a big fucking battery.
You know, I don't remember whether it was in the 60s or the 70s, they actually built and demonstrated a fuel cell tractor. Now, I don't know any of the specs on it, but they actually did create one. So a lot of these technologies, the turbine tractor, all this stuff has been tried. This stuff is newer, but all the stuff we can currently think about, usually it's been tried, and for various reasons it's not being used now, but it will be, yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is that, an electric tractor, it's fine if you've got a nice little hobby farm, but when you're dealing with 2,500 hectares,
1,000 hectares, 2,400 acres. And we're kind of the small guy. There's guys farming 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 40,000 acres.
That's a big chunk
They'll
of land.
They'll need a little more energy.
Yeah, just think about when you look on Google Map and you see one of those squares on Google Map. What's that, like a hectare?
It's a mile.
It's a mile.
It's 640 acres. It's basically 300 hectares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's it's like ding, ding, ding. Those, they're huge.
Yeah. Oh, I got something for you. I don't know if you've driven past in White City Emerald Park. They have Seedmaster.
Okay. Yeah.
If you drive around the back on the next service road away from the Trans-Canada, you can look in and see something they call DOT. It's an autonomous tractor thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's a small unit. It's a power unit, and then you buy these implements for it, maybe 30 feet wide. And yeah, it's a driverless tractor, and I don't know if they're on the market yet. There's a testing ground outside on Highway 48. I think there's a dot set up, and they have a bin and an auger and stuff, and they do testing of the seeding tool and things like that. But they have one, and Case IH has an autonomous tractor design. The biggest thing I think around here is, as my friend said once, in a wet year, they demoed it at the Farm Progress Show, and their slogan was C. Run. My friend said, in a wet year on the farm, it'd be C. Spin.
That was actually when I seen those autonomous tractors. That was the first thing that went through my head.
How do you keep them from driving into a mud hole?
Yes, exactly. I mean, you could only use that in your pristine field.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I mean, but if you got a field that's, where you've got to go around a mud hole, that tractor becomes almost useless unless you map it out.
You'd have to
precisely
tell it everything.
Yeah, you'd have to tell it exactly where to go. And even then, I don't know like anybody is from the Midwest, but the thing is, about the Midwest is that your neighbor could get a downpour of rain and you could get nothing.
Yeah.
And so, and it all happens within moments. Like you could watch it come in, but it's still, you're still rolling the dice on whether or not it's going to dump on you.
It would have to be tied to some kind of a satellite observation system that could tell the soil moisture and so on, and they've got that. I've been to ag seminars. They talk about, there's actually a guy now who is selling services where they hook up to a satellite in space that can see what your plant health is on the ground. You can subscribe to that service, so I'm guessing it can tell whether Dot's going to drive into a mud hole and steer it around it, probably.
Yeah. Can you tell a couple of farm boys? I grew up on a farm. Peter still runs one.
Yes.
So we know a little bit, but he has it better actually because he's dealing with crops. On the farm I grew up on, we were dealing with livestock. So there was let's put it this way. I've witnessed the murder of countless chickens, countless geese, countless ducks, and probably several hundred cows, pigs, and sheep.
So you had poultry and you had cows, pigs, and sheep.
Oh, we had everything.
Did you raise them mostly for yourself, or you would sell them? What volumes? Okay.
Oh yeah, we would sell them. The cows would go to market when it was time. Chickens were our biggest one. We would get like 10,000 chickens.
Oh my goodness.
And we would raise them, and then we would send them off.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, I bore witness on one farm. It didn't happen on ours, and I was like, that is never going to happen on our farm. But I used to go up the road and work at other farms to make a little extra money because father wasn't. He was not in the habit of paying his children to work the farm. So you go to the next farm over, and you would and usually you got this when it was barn cleaning time, right? So I mean, the farmer next door, he'll hire anybody to come and shovel shit, right? He didn't care. So you'd go there for maybe 3 or 4 days and make $40 a day shoveling shit. Teenagers, it was extra money. Anyways, it was on this egg farm that this guy owned. It was a big egg farm too. He had 3 barns that were 250 feet long by 75 feet wide, so big barns. And they brought in this machine. And the thing is about laying hens, when they're done, they're done. Okay, they're no good. We raised meat kings, broiler meat kings.
Okay.
Basically, I used to make the joke is we're raising chickens for KFC, and because that's where probably most of them went. And but when it came to laying hens, when they came to the end of their cycle, which was usually about 2.5 years. They were dog and cat food. They were not for human consumption. So the company that's buying these chickens decided that they were going to save themselves a shit ton of money by bringing in this machine that did the harvesting and packing of the chickens all at once. And I'll tell you, it was an absolute fucking nightmare, because basically you came to the door and you threw the chickens down into a hopper, and this machine, it did its job. I'm not even going to describe what its job was, but needless to say, live chickens went in one end and bagged chicken parts came out the other end. It was the most horrific sound of diesel engine and screaming chickens that you will ever hear in your life. And after that night of listening to that crazy shit, I was like, yeah, I ain't ever doing this again. I mean, I'll clean your barns, but I ain't doing that ever again. I mean, that was just Nightmare City, is all that was. And you don't even want to know the mess that it left behind on the ground. It was like, let's put it this way, the blowflies were feasting for a week. It was disgusting. I mean, I would rather have smelt shit.
All right. Well, let's switch gears.
Yeah, we're done with the farm stories.
We're going to talk about karma, maybe. So my question is stuff like the sinking of the Titanic, the destruction of the Hindenburg. When I read accounts of the Titanic, kind of what happened with the lifeboats, and was there some spiritual adjustment going on there with, let's see, let me describe what I'm talking about. I think he's, in the book, some of the lifeboats were, the crewman who was commanding the lifeboat wanted them to go like away, and then the people in the lifeboat mutiny, and they said, well, let's go pick up survivors, and then some of the others did the opposite or something like that. and I'm wondering if just associated with huge big events like that, is it like some kind of societal hubris, I guess, like the sinking of the Titanic. They engineered this thing and they hyped it up, and they thought, well, nothing could ever possibly happen to it, or is that maybe the media made more of it than, but the people involved they knew the chances they were taking, or did they actually think it was mostly invulnerable? They thought it was invulnerable. Oh yeah, I mean, when you look at the things that they took on board, like there were like rare paintings, rare cut jewelry, rare vehicles. Like there was a lot of stuff that was put on that ship that people placed a great deal of value on, and there was a reason why they wanted to put it on the Titanic, is because they didn't trust the normal steamships of that time to make it across the Atlantic. Yeah, it was stuff that today we would put in airtight floating containers should anything happen to the ship.
Yes, so
or something like that. Yeah.
So this stuff was like almost priceless in its in its value, especially to the people that owned them. And so yeah, they believed it. And really, they had no reason not to. The newspaper told them that, it was unsinkable. The engineer said it was unsinkable. Like, there was so much hype, so they believed it, and there was no reason not to.
No, because up to that time, it was probably the best designed ship of the time. I mean, we can look back today and say, well, it should have had this and this and this, but the engineers couldn't think of any scenario other than something hitting the side of the ship, two compartments getting breached at the same time, and it survived that. But I think what happened was it got peeled open like a tin can, and then impersonated an ice cube tray when you set it in the sink and start filling one end of it, is basically what happened to it.
Well, the thing is that the Titanic was perfectly engineered. Seriously, it was like perfect in its engineering for the level of engineering at that time.
Yes.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
The problem,
state of the art.
The problem was that came in is that, and actually I still see it today in construction, is they had spent so much time worrying about the little details about the paint, the trim, the stairwell, the design, the basic, the aesthetic design of the ship, and nobody bothered to look at the integrity of the metal.
Mm-hmm.
And the metal had too much carbon in it. And while it tested fine in port, nobody bothered to think how this metal would react under Arctic conditions. And therein lays the problem. Like, normally, like, in optimal conditions, that iceberg would have probably just put its dent in the hull. But because you were dealing with Arctic conditions, the metal, it didn't rip open. The metal shattered.
Yeah, it just broke.
Yeah, it just broke into a million pieces.
And how cold? The water was above freezing by 5 degrees, or it was close to freezing? Basically.
It was below freezing.
Below freezing. Okay.
Yeah, remember salt water? Salt water.
Oh yeah, it freezes much colder than fresh water.
Yeah, I mean most salt water is at an average of 4 degrees Celsius, and then and that's in the summertime, in the Maritimes, in the Bay of Fundy, it's 4 degrees year round. It does not change. Now you get up around Newfoundland, that drastically starts to change in the wintertime. And and so that is the problem that they ran into, is that now you're dealing with now you're getting into minus Celsius temperatures, and the thing is that when you're dealing with minus Celsius temperatures, it's not just a matter. See, temperature is not, it's like people don't understand what temperature is actually measuring. Okay,
it's measuring the energy of whatever's in
it.
It's
it's measuring the rate of energy transfer.
Right. Okay.
Or the rate of energy that is leaving a body. So when you get into minus 5 Celsius, it's the rate of energy transfer from the metal to the water just keeps going up. Yeah. And the thing is that over time it could still remain at minus 5 degrees, but it becomes exponential of the energy rate that's leaving. The same amount of energy is leaving, it's just doing it in a more efficient rate. So,
okay.
So while the water might have been at minus 5, the metal itself could have been at minus 10 because of the rate of energy transfer between the metal and the water.
Okay.
There's no insulation between it. And so, yeah, the whole thing just cracked wide the fuck open.
Yeah, there was a guy we knew who went up in the Arctic on drilling rigs, and he said he walked out at I think minus 70 below zero. He picked up a piece of scrap iron and he hit it on a barrel or a rock or something, and it just shattered like it was glass.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I've been up there.
Extremes of temperature.
Yeah.
All right. So
it's not a fun place to be.
one more question, and then we'll talk about the Urantia book for a while.
Okay.
But my question is about the population of the planet, kind of present versus historic. The charts that everybody wants you to believe says that we started out with, for the last thousands and thousands of years, there were maybe several 100 million to 1 billion people on the planet, and the last couple hundred years it spiked up to 5 billion, and then 7, 8, not whatever it is now, 8 or close to 8. So I want your take on that, and I'm going to preface it by saying we went to a museum in Trier, I think, Germany, and they had a model of the city, and I'm just looking at the city, looking at this, and the people in the city, I think that's mostly, they had slaves, and they had to house the slaves in other places maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, is the population of the planet in as much flux as we've been told?
Like, what do you mean, like flux? Is it like?
Was it a lot less, say 500 or 5,000 years ago, or was it, maybe not as high as it is now, but how's it changed in the last 1,000 years?
Well, population is directly influenced by our agriculture,
Okay.
by our agricultural technology, and that's pretty much the only way that it can be. Because I mean, this is why empires expanded. They weren't, yeah, they were looking for wealth and stuff like that, but what they were really looking for is they were looking to use the conquered population to grow the food
Right.
for the population that conquered them. And this is why when empires conquered other empires, everybody, the conquered didn't do well because they were basically expected to serve the conqueror. And so, so it was always back and forth. And this is where you get your flux, is because it was so dependent on how many people you could have working in the agricultural industry. And this is partly why Rome ended up falling, is because the Romans felt that they were above farming. And so they wanted to, and everybody wanted, I mean, it's kind of like what's going on today. The children think that they're above going out and weeding a garden. And it's just like, do you not know where your food comes from? And Rome ran into the same thing. And this is, and so the only way that they could keep their gardens growing, it was to go out and conquer. But the thing is that they had conquered everything around them, that they ended up having to go further and further away from Rome in order to conquer a people, to bring them back to grow their crops.
Yeah, so they kept getting sedentary in the middle part, and they kept expanding outward, and pretty soon their supply lines became stretched too thin. The whole thing became unwieldy.
Yeah, I mean, and then so I mean, and then so when they went to the north, not only did they deal with an unruly population, like I mean the Germans, there was a different name for them back then, but they couldn't do anything. I mean, they would try to go in and conquer them, and they would just fight back. And forget about the Scots. I mean, holy shit. The Romans were so terrified of the Scots, they ended up building a wall.
Yeah.
And if you cross that wall, you're going like, I'm going over there, the Roman soldier would just look at you and just be like, good luck, buddy. And they never expected to see you again.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that was Blue Man territory, by the way. And, there was no coming back from that, because the Blue Man was vicious and clever. That's not a very good combination to have. I mean, it's
not
a good.
If you're on their bad side.
Yeah, not to be on the bad. I mean, great as a society, but not if you're going to go to war with that type of people. Nope. I mean, the only thing that the Romans could do with the Blue Man was to breed them out. That's exactly what they did. They bred them out, and now the Blue Man is non-existent today. It's like Scotland is all Caucasian, well, white. Now there's no more Blue Men left. They're all gone. They were all bred out, first by the Roman Empire and then by the British Empire, which the British Empire was just an extension of the Roman Empire. So yeah, they just so no agriculture. But now, today, in our modern world, we've got machines that do all that work for us. So population spiked, which actually comes full circle back to the problem with our economy.
Right.
Because now, I don't have to go work on a farm to feed my family, because a tractor is doing that job now, and it's doing the job of 20 people, maybe more.
Oh yeah, it depends on the size of the tractor. My My farm's relatively modest, my equipment is modest, and I'd say we're feeding thousands of people a year.
Yeah. And you're operating, so you're feeding thousands of people a year, and you've got like what?
2 tractors and
So you got about
medium-sized
$250,000 worth of equipment.
something like that.
Yeah, so you're doing that on $250,000 worth of equipment. You translate that into a wage to, for people, and how many people would that pay? Let's say on average it's say everybody's getting minimum wage $50,000 a year, and I'm being generous, by the way. So say $50,000 a year, that's 5 people.
Something like
Yeah, so you could have half a dozen people working on your farm, and they still wouldn't even come close to replacing that equipment.
Not at all.
Not even close. Because, you would need at least 20 guys on your farm full time in order to replace that equipment. That's quite the expense. And then on top of that, try finding 20 guys that are willing to come out there and work.
Exactly, yeah. The funny story, the neighbor close to us who has one of the bigger 10,000 plus acres, probably more than that, he said he had guys turn down offers to come out and work because his tractors didn't have a CD player.
No.
They had a radio, FM radio, and this is probably before iPods and stuff. But he said guys wouldn't go because there was no CD player in the tractor.
Oh, but people are fucked.
Right.
I mean, I interviewed a guy for a job last week. Okay, he showed up at 7 a.m. like I asked him to. So, hey, good for you, buddy. You got the fuck out of bed. Great. But that was pretty much the only good thing I could say about this guy, because I mean, in the end, he was rude. Because he felt like, and when I told him that, working in the shop also involves cleaning the shop, I mean, this guy just fucking looked at me like I just fucking grew a fucking third eye in the middle of my forehead. And I was just like, well, it's like, you got to keep the shop clean. There's no choice. And, there were other things in this interview that I was just like, wow. And in the end, in the end, I knew the guy wasn't going to work out because he commented on my age. He was like, wow, he's like, you seem like, awfully young to be running this department. I'm like, what the fuck does my age have to do with anything? It's just like, what if I'm the only competent person that, that showed up? But, so in the end, this guy was rude to me, and he walked away without shaking my hand. Oh yeah.
Wow.
And I'm just like, okay, he doesn't like that I'm younger than him, and he wouldn't shake. I'm just like, are you really expecting me to call you the fuck back? It's like unbelievable. And this guy was in his 50s. I know he was in his 50s. And I'm just like, how could you have lived this long and not know the proper protocols for a potential employer? I mean, it's not my fault that, that I'm younger than, that I look younger than most people. I'm actually an old man, by the way. But, so it's just, that's the attitude that you run into. It's just, just like, won't come out for a CD player. It's like, I mean, I have my thing too, where, there's certain jobs that I won't do, but they've got to be pretty bad. Like, if I walk into a job site and I see like crap everywhere, and I see like, well, I've got half a day's work here just to clean up so that we can do the job. It's like, why do I want to deal with this? And so, yeah.
Trouble playing the. Should I refresh it or start over?
Did it stop?
Maybe. Yeah, it said we're having trouble playing this video. So
I'm gonna have a leak.
Okay. End live video, and I'm gonna pause my other video or stop
my other video, part 2. Can I pause?